Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kaz here, and one of the cool things that I've really gotten out of this Occupy movement is you meet a lot of cool cats out there with a lot of different ideas, and it's getting us away from the TVs, away from the mass media, away from the programming, the commercials, the buy the Nike shoes bullshit, and it's getting us talking again. It's reinforcing a sense of community that's been lost for a lot of time. So I'm out the other day, out down on the street with the sign and all that, and I look across the street, and there's this guy with another sign. And it says something about embracing complexity economics, and what the hell, complexity economics? I've never heard of it. So I went over, we introduced ourselves, and I asked him, so, sir, what is complexity economics?
Complexity economics is a methodology more than any specific theory, and in that sense, what that sort of means is it's a way of doing economics research and a way of doing of creating economic theories. Complexity economics is based on what is called, and don't tune out just because there's some crazy words, but the complex adaptive systems theory. This sort of came out of, well, most of the research has been done at the Santa Fe Institute in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That site was founded by, among the more famous people it was founded by was Murray Gell-Mann, who won the 1969 Nobel Prize in physics for quantum physics. And many other people have contributed greatly to that institution for a while now. Complexity economics comes out of their studies in physics, which were studies of what are called nonlinear systems. And a nonlinear system is a system that cannot be analyzed or broken down mathematically into a simple equation, or what's called a linear equation. Most of the stuff that we've all done in high school, in college, have been, in terms of mathematics, have been linear mathematics. Nonlinear systems are composed of many parts. So many parts that in certain circumstances it's impossible to count. In this framework there is, it's called the general systems theory, and there are three basic regimes, they're called, or types of systems. The type of system that we know most, the type that we know best from school would be the linear regime, which would be a Newtonian. Newtonian mechanics is linear. So when you do physics in the Newtonian system, you get some sort of a line, say a parabola. You're going to shoot a cannonball out of a cannon, and it's going to go. There's no air resistance, let's say. You get a nice, beautiful, perfect parabolic curve. That can be expressed in some variation of, y equals x squared, right? That's the sort of a linear system. On the other end of the scale, there's something called a chaotic system. And a chaotic system is like the weather, right? Chaos theory, as greatly developed by Lorentz, I believe back in the 60s, I may be wrong about dates. Lorentz discovered what was called a chaotic attractor. And this is where the concept of the butterfly effect comes from. Whereas a small change can drastically alter in a chaotic system, the outcome of the system after a certain amount of time. The more time, the more it can alter it. The bigger the change in initial conditions, the more it can alter. So what a complex system is a system that is between this linear regime and the chaotic regime. So it's sort of a mixture of the two systems, right? The linear regime is called the ordered regime as well, many times, because it's very ordered, like a crystal. Stuart Kauffman describes these three states as if, like states of matter. For example, the ordered regime is like a crystal. the chaotic regime is like the air. It's like a gas, right? Particles flying all over, right? And a tiny little change in the initial condition changes where each particle ends up, big time. Butterfly effect. In between that, we have sort of a liquid where, parts may be frozen and other parts may be moving and it's changing, but it also has some rigidity. And so it can do multiple things. It can be extremely sensitive to initial conditions at a certain point or a certain place in the system, or it can be extremely robust against change. Even big changes in initial conditions in some parts of a complex system could, not affect really anything. This sort of modeling was, in some ways, carried to more of a fruition by Stuart Kauffman in his groundbreaking work, where he used the supercomputer at Los Alamos National Laboratory. There are a lot of ties between Los Alamos, where our physicists work. We entrust these people with our nuclear weapons arsenal. They're not slackers.
No.
So he got access to use the supercomputer at Los Alamos in the early 90s, and he revolutionized evolutionary theory in biology, and pretty much the standard model now in biology for evolution, theories of ecosystems and evolution in ecosystems and those sorts of things. And also the origin of life, Kauffman's autocatalysis, automatically reproducing molecules. Mm-hmm. Right? He demonstrated a lot of this mathematically, and the type of math that he had to use was this nonlinear mathematics, in particular the complex adaptive systems theory. Not all complex systems are complex adaptive systems. A complex adaptive system is a very special kind of complex system. But life, pretty much everything about life, from our cells, from the way that the molecules in our cells behave, to the way that our DNA evolves in relation to our bodies and the environment and our brains. It's also very good at describing thought and thinking in neural networks. That's the complex adaptive systems theory. Complexity economics really then is the application mostly, well, this is sort of an opinion though, mostly of the Kaufmanian dynamic or Kaufman's evolutionary models to economic theory. Now there are some caveats, because once you bring it out to the scale of economics, there are other factors which are not the same, right? There are, for example, what Geoffrey West talks about. Geoffrey West is the former president of the Santa Fe Institute. Now he's working on economic theory. Much of the complexity economics that's been done has had to be published in physics journals, good physics journals, mind you. And the reason for that is that many of these economic journals won't publish it. It's not in line with their way of doing things. Their way of doing things goes back, mathematically anyway, to the late 1800s with Walras. And he essentially pilfered equations from the physics textbooks of the time, which were purely Newtonian, purely linear, and could only describe systems that were in equilibrium. And the concept of linear equilibrium theories in economics has driven pretty much all of our policy decisions for a very long time. And what that means is we're using a form of mathematics that, if you were to ask a mathematician what it has to do with economy, nowadays, the answer would be virtually nothing. There's really no excuse anymore for using this type of theory, this equilibrium theory. First of all, one of the main assumptions of an equilibrium theory is that the system tends to equilibrium. When you assume that from the very beginning, what you get is a prediction, pretty much always, that the system will return to equilibrium. But that's not what we see in reality. That's not what we even see necessarily in economics. We tend to be very myopic and focus on America and our success. I would contend, and this is opinion, that much of our success has come from sucking up resources from the rest of the world. This is very evident in the data. You know, we use most of the world's energy. We constitute about 20% of the population, use like 80% of the energy. I ran into a guy the other day, for example, who argued with me that thermodynamics has nothing to do with the economy. If that's so, why are we using so much energy? We're using more energy than at this point we can produce without taking it out of the ground. Millions of years worth of deposited energy from the sun in terms of hydrocarbons from plant matter. So we're using an extreme amount of energy. Thermodynamics has everything to do with this system. It is a physical system. It's made out of atoms. Applying physical laws to it doesn't strike me as being ridiculous. Of course, we must have behavioral economics, and they do. The models in complexity economics they can only be done on a computer. I don't want to say that. For people to do them, they can only be done on a computer. It would take you a million years, potentially, to work out a model by hand with a piece of paper. So when computers were in a sort of coming of age in the mid-late 1980s is when the Santa Fe Institute really got going, because we had the ability to do these types of models. Applications, again, to economic theory have been extraordinarily successful. They predict failures where other models don't. I heard that the Fed did a study to try to predict what would happen if housing prices fell by so much of a percentage, and it predicted, nothing really bad would happen. And we saw very clearly what did happen. Yeah. Complexity models predict that sort of thing. They predict failure, and they also predict. They're very much in line with the 99% movement, I think, and sort of an anti-globalization sentiment in a sense. Mm-hmm. Globalization does have definite benefit, but it also drastically increases the complexity of the system. Computer trading, for example, drastically increases the randomness in the system. You're essentially adding an element of randomness and giving up some control. Adding randomness and increasing the complexity of this system, which has become so complex, is a recipe for disaster, according to complexity economics. And I think that it's become very evident. Our eyes and our ears tell us, that these models are failing. And, the Republicans are essentially using a linear equilibrium theory, which is neoclassical theory. The Democrats are using a linear equilibrium theory, which is Keynesian theory. These theories have clearly failed in terms of predictive power, and we have to come up with something better. I think that these aren't just physicists, of course. The Santa Fe Institute is probably the most interdisciplinary school on the planet. They go around and find the best people that they can find, and they put them in a room together. They put physicists in the same room with biologists. They put, sociologists in that same room, and they work on complex adaptive systems theory-based models of the economy. It seems to be working out, and I'm out trying to promote it. I've got my sign. We need complexity economics. And that's what I'm doing. Also, the Facebook page over the summer, some pretty enlightened friends, in my opinion, and I put together a Facebook page. We put everything that we could on the wall, and we just got every bit of research, every video, every explanation that we could find on the internet, and just put it on the wall. It took us 2 months of working on it every day. So I'm also trying to direct people to that page, which is www.facebook.com/GPSTG. We were sort of inspired by for example, the Facebook page, we are all Kali Saeed, which sort of helped to trigger the Egyptian revolution, and the Tunisians and those revolutions. And we saw Facebook as a good method of doing this. Now that the global Occupy movement is essentially everywhere, I hope that we will at least look into this and hopefully embrace it as our model. A lot of our critics are saying, what do we stand for? What is our model? We don't know what we're talking about. I think we do. I think we can see very clearly with our eyes and with our ears and see it in the news and see everything that's going on, and we know that these models have failed. And we're looking for something better. And there is something that is based on rigorous mathematics. It's based on rigorous empirical science and data gathering. And it's it can't be dismissed. So I think we should embrace complexity economics as at least a model for us to look into, try out. It doesn't tell us, exactly what we should do. It doesn't, it doesn't make all the decisions for us, but it tells us what's going to kill us. It tells us what we can't do in many ways. What can we get away with in reality? What is eventually going to lead to a drastically widening wealth gap that's driving a wedge, right into the center of humanity, which is what I see happening. So, we have to create a system that's balanced. We have to create a system that will stay balanced. I would aim for a normal curve in terms of wealth disparity. I would aim for wealth disparity. I would aim for something like a normal distribution. Try to keep it as tight as is feasible. It's not socialism. It's not capitalism necessarily. But that's up to us. Those are democratic decisions that we have to make as the 99%, essentially. That this is what the people want. This is how we want to live. This is the type of wealth distribution we're comfortable with, and not just comfortable with, but the type that good models tell us won't result in massive suffering or massive strife among people. That's basically what I'm advocating. So pretty much, that's about it.
That's about it. All right. Well, I think that's a good introductory video. What I want to do is open it up to you all now. If you have a specific question, what I'd like you to do is first, I want you to go check out Nick's Facebook page, and I will put a link to it somewhere right here. I'll put a little link bar in there for you to go check it out. And if you have a specific question, what I want you all to do is leave it as a comment in the below bar. And what I'll do then is I'll get a hold of Nick. We'll have us a little follow-up, and we can address some of the questions that you might have about it. All right? Anything else at all?
No, that's it. Just give me some time to look up the answer. I'm
you
definitely not an expert on this stuff. I would, again, point to the Facebook page, GPSTG/GPSTG. And right now, hopefully, I recently took Murray Gell-Mann's speech video and put it right at the top. I really think that that's a really good speech, and it's much better than anything I could deliver. I guarantee that. So just give me time to look up the answer.
Almost like you. I told him, I'm like, the wife's going to call right around 7. All right. Later, peace, and Nick, thanks a million, man.